Welcome, everybody, to Ellen Explains It All, featuring special guest Molly Shoemaker.
There
Yay!
she is. Hi, Molly.
If you're not aware, this is the show where I ask our executive director, Amanda Shin, your questions. And today, obviously, we have a special guest who will also be answering those questions. Very exciting.
Very exciting.
Before we start, I always like to ask Amanda a little warm-up cue, but since Molly is here as well, I'll ask one that's relevant to both of you. What are you most excited about for this current season?
And do you mean in terms of like AfterWork Theater spring season or just the spring
Yes.
season?
Season of
Or just spring. That's also exciting.
Molly, would you like to go first?
I'm happy to. I am co-directing this dance out with Anya, my good friend and collaborator. So yeah, it's been I think 2 years exactly since I've been in a full director role like this. So I'm just really excited to get back into it. Launch day is on Saturday. And because like the dance out is delayed or it starts a little bit later than the other two programs, it really feels like we've been like chomping at the bit a little bit because like it's we're hearing about 13 and the sing out and things progressing there, and I'm like, I want to get started too. So it's exciting that it's finally here on Saturday. Or I don't know when this is coming out, but relative
Yeah,
to now it's Saturday. So
Yeah, probably before Saturday.
maybe. We'll
Well,
see.
I'm excited for you. Yeah, exactly. I don't want to make any promises. I'm excited for you, Molly. I can't wait to see the show. But what I'm excited for, and this might be, a controversial answer, but I'm excited to be taking the season off.
I
Uh,
love breaks. I
I
push breaks
love
for
breaks.
people. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
pro of that for you and everyone. So
Yeah, it's whenever people take breaks, they always like they seem to tell me like with like an apologetic tone, and I'm like, no need to apologize. Like I think it's very important to take time for yourself, take, a step away. Your friends are still your friends, so like you're still going to see the people you want to see. And, like do something else, explore other hobbies, take the time to like, miss us and come back when you're feeling refreshed. So that's what I'm doing this season. And I did take a break last season as well, but I did do a different show with a different company. So it'll just be nice to spend time with my puppy.
Yeah, absolutely. I love a break. Also, I realize I totally skipped over this. People might not know who Molly is. Molly, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'd be happy to. My name is Molly Shoemaker. I have been with the organization in some capacity since 2015. My first show was You're in Town the first time. Although the first show I saw was Anything Goes with Amanda Chin, though I didn't see Amanda earlier that spring in 2015. And I remember that was at this time, part of the registration strategy was they announced the show, I think, is part of the pre-show speech, and they were like, if you go at intermission and sign up, you get like a small discount. And they announced that it was Urinetown, and I had stage managed that in high school, and I was like, oh, I really like that show. I think I should do it. And I went out and I signed up. And then I spent probably like the show was probably in June. And we probably started rehearsals in either late August or early September. So I spent the next several months like deeply regretting my decision. I was like, I don't want to do this. I'm really nervous. Like, I think I shouldn't do it. It's going to be bad. I don't know what to do. I'm so nervous about it. And I think the only reason I went on launch day was because of like the financial commitment I had made. Like, I just was like, that was like the only thing getting me going. And I truly like felt like I was going to throw up the entire time that I was there. But here I am now. I joined the board, I think in late 2020 or late 2021. Late 2020, one of those 20s. I have also directed and stage managed a few things over the years, so that's who I am.
And your position on the board
Oh, I
is?
thought we said that at the top of this meeting. I'm the president of the board. I thought we said that. I thought that's how Ellen had introduced me when we first started, but
I don't
that's
know.
I was supposed to, and I
yeah.
didn't. Sorry.
And then Molly, it's a good thing you did Urinetown because you met the love of your life
You.
Yes.
Yeah. I met a lot of people who are really important to me in that show.
Sure.
Anya was in that show. You were in that show. Meryl was in that show. Though I do like to say that, like, I don't think any of us were like particularly, or I wasn't like a peer friend at that moment. So sometimes when folks are like a little like, it didn't happen for them in the first show, I'm like, that was my experience. So I understand.
Hey,
And Cody was also in that show, my husband. So look at that, you know. I've known all those people for 10 years. Crazy.
yeah, you're approaching your 10-year anniversary.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, later this
2015
fall.
was 10 years ago. That's,
That
Oh,
was wild.
yeah.
I don't like that. Our topic for this episode is budget and finances. This is an episode that I know a lot of you have been waiting for, despite your reluctance to vote for it in the poll.
And then so many questions,
I know.
so many
People
great
come to me like
questions.
in person and they're like, do this episode. And I'm like,
Yeah.
vote. Anyway, we're just gonna do it.
Yeah.
As always, if your question isn't asked, it's because someone else asked the same question or it was covered in a previous episode. There's never any tea or any shade over here on Ellen Explains It All. And we have a lot to talk about, so let's just jump in. Our first question: how many spots are set aside for financial aid each show, and how is it determined who receives it?
And then in parentheses.
Oh, and then in parentheses, sorry if this was answered in a previous video. I can't remember, LOL. I don't think it was.
I don't think it was. And also, I love talking about financial assistance and the process. So even if I did answer it before, I'm happy to talk about it again. There aren't a specific number of spots. It's more like there's a specific amount of money set aside for each show. And because people can ask for anywhere between 25% off and 100% off, it just depends on what people are asking for, which determines how many spots are given. But I would say on average for a musical, it ends up being anywhere from 6 to 9 spots. For a play, anywhere from 2 to 4 spots. For an out, it's like anywhere from like 4 to 6 spots, or maybe even fewer than that. This is purely like my muscle memory pulling these numbers, but it's something like that. And because it's not a set number, like I don't necessarily always look at how many people have been awarded. Was there a second part to that? Oh, the process. People who would like to apply for financial assistance fill out a very simple application where they're asked some questions about themselves and then asked like what would this experience like do for them in their lives, and to explain a little bit more about their financial situation. We have a financial assistance administrator who, like, they are the only person that sees every answer, because what they do is they take every application, they take all the personal information that was asked and they redact it and incorporate it into a rubric where we allow for like certain answers to be weighted a little bit heavier, in terms of like in terms of promoting diversity amongst the group. And then they prepare the written answers, which are about like, how would this change your life, and what is your financial situation, like what, say more about your financial need. And they prepare those for a panel of 5 people to review. So those 5 people don't know who the people are. They don't know anything personal about them. And they are also very much encouraged to like not rate people by how well things are written. And we also have an opportunity for people who, if they feel like writing things down is not like accessible to them, our administrator will call them and ask them to verbally give their answers over the phone, or they could submit a voice memo and then our administrator like makes a transcript of that. And then the 5 people read those answers, score them, and then all the scores, including like our demographic information, are incorporated together in order to rank the potential recipients. And then we basically like go from the highest score down until we reach the amount of money that we had set aside. We offer, some people turn it down, and then we're able to go to the next people on the list until all the money is exhausted. And the people on the panel are they could be staff members. I do it a bunch of times. It could be board members, and it
Right.
could be community volunteers. So if you're a community member and you, one, never apply for financial assistance because we just don't want to have any conflict of interest, and would be interested in like taking part in this process, we would love to have you. Molly has read applications in the
And
past. Do you want to
I
say a
will
little bit
say,
about
yeah, I
what?
will say it's great. I mean, it's a great way to participate in the system. And I like never have any sense. I would say I know a lot of people in this community pretty well, and I just like don't ever really know who I'm reviewing. Just like wanted to share that personally. And yeah, I think also I just wanted to say like this process has changed and been iterated on like many times since we started offering some semblance of this before. And I'm really happy with like where it has landed right now. And I'm sure it will continue to iterate as we learn more things and when we eventually are a, $3 million organization and can offer different things.
Yes, I imagine that that time is right around the corner.
Yeah, it's the giggle at the end.
Yeah.
It's the giggle about being a $3 million
Oh,
organization.
I
It's
know.
not even a big number,
No, it's not even a big number, but it's
but it's
big.
big for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does AWT's partnership with Sirovich work? Do we get discounts?
Great question. I'm just thinking of like what could we get discounts on? Again, this has evolved over time. So I'll just explain what it is today, and it has not always been like this. But we rent the space. We rent both the auditorium and the mezzanine for rehearsal space, and we also rent the space in the basement for storage. We have such a long-standing relationship with them that they do give us a break by like paying in advance. So like I just had an enormous check clear, but it is for literally all of the space usage for this current fiscal year. But it has not always looked like just a straight up rental. Like we've produced programs with their members in the past, which have been like some of the most wonderful programs I have ever seen. So I was a little sad to see them go. But we as an organization have sponsored activities for their members in exchange for use of the space. But it is only actually as of this year that we started just paying a rental fee for the space.
Yeah, but it is a really important relationship for us to maintain. I think obviously like we would figure it out if we weren't able to use that space anymore, but it is like it's a very, very important relationship. And Amanda does a lot of work behind the scenes to maintain that relationship so that we're still, in good standing because like I don't think they have to, they're not counting on us for anything. So it's important, I think, for us as an organization to like stay on good footing with them.
Yeah.
And I think we do. And we're all a part of that. Like it's putting away trash, it's,
Yeah.
respecting quiet hours, it's resetting the room upstairs the way it needs to be, all like contribute to them thinking of us in a positive light. So
Yeah. And I also want to give credit to Savannah, who also
oh
like
yes.
more actively day to day maintains that relationship. And for those who've been around for a while, you may notice like we don't know like what space we're using as far in advance as we used to. And that is just a change in the way that Sirovich and other spaces that we use regularly have been, renting out their space, which is like totally fine and standard for them. It's just different for us. So I know that those who are more used to like just knowing things like 3 months in advance might be a little frustrated. And unfortunately, for us, this is just the new reality, but it's also like if you've never experienced it that far in advance, it's totally fine. So, I just want to acknowledge that, Savannah gets questions all the time from our stage managers, like, where's this rehearsal? Where's this rehearsal? And she's like, I swear I will tell you the minute I know.
Yeah.
There was a moment when we were wedding planning, Cody and I, where I was like, should we get married in Sirovich? Like, that'd be so amazing. And he was like, no. I was like, it
Wow.
has such emotion. He was like, I just don't think it looks like the way you want it to look. And I was like, that's probably true.
But maybe you could have had an engagement party there or something.
Yeah. And I did when we applied, not to be too much of a tangent, I did when we applied to be featured in the New York Times, because that is like an application process, basically. The photos I shared were photos of us like doing You're in Town in Sirovich, like 2.0, because I knew that would get them,
Yeah. Yeah.
Love Sirovich. Maybe not enough to get married in it, but great place, great people. How are scholarships and tuition assistance taken into consideration when it comes to the final price of participation and the show budget overall?
I'm not positive I understand the question, so I'm just going to answer it the way I'm understanding it. It's actually like the order of operations is different. Like we determine how much the show is and how much the show, like the tuition is, and we budget so that we can see like how much can we afford to give away in terms of scholarships. So like that amount might change year to year if we either find that we have enough of a surplus based on our programming and other income, or like we might have to decrease how much financial assistance we give away. So it is the registration pricing that is more fixed, and that would affect the amount of scholarships as opposed to the other way around, if I'm understanding the question correctly.
Yeah, so you're not like setting the registration fee with like this much money in mind to hold for
Correct.
financial assistance. Okay.
Yeah.
Since AWT is a community-based nonprofit, would it be possible for participants to have more of a say on what funds are used for? For example, is there a world in which the budget is voted on by the community, or the community is invited to observe a budget meeting? Sorry, I lost my thought for a second there, but
I understand. Molly, do you want to take a first swing at this?
I'll take a first swing. There's a lot in this question that I want to unpack. The first thing is, which I like, I don't want to get like too into like verbiage and nomenclature here, but I don't know that I would necessarily classify us as a community-based nonprofit. When I think of community-based nonprofits, I think of like a service organization that exists in a particular area to like serve a particular population. So like perhaps you are providing, food to people who are food insecure, or you're providing, housing, or you're providing, it doesn't have to be that like the stakes are that high, but that's like what I'm thinking about. For us, we function, we are I think of us as like functioning more like an organization, like a camp, that is like tuition based. So that I want to put that kind of to the side a little bit, because I think that's less about what we are. But I do very much hear the question about like participation and how we spend our money. I think it's very natural to be super curious about that. From where I sit, there's like two big reasons why I am supportive of the way that we do things now. One of which is I actually like find a lot of comfort in the structure that we as an organization have this staff of people that is overseen by the board from a checks and balances point of view. But we say this staff, it is their job to administrate our programming, basically. So it's like their job to make this all happening, because it means that like those are the people we can hold accountable to this stuff happening. So that like if like, if a space is not secured, we can say, oh, Savannah, I have a question about this. Like, where is the space happening? As opposed to it feeling more amorphous and like who different people in charge of those kinds of decisions. The other thing I want to say is like, I am imagining that if we did, for instance, vote on what shows we wanted to do, that it is very possible that because of the makeup of our population, which is very white and very cis female, that we might then fall into a trap of producing or creating shows that are like for that population specifically, instead of, or predominantly, instead of like pushing ourselves to open that up a little bit more and feature work or shows or what have you that are representative of other identities and populations. And so like that's what would worry me a little bit about saying like we're going to switch to a voting system and whichever one gets the highest amount goes, because there are other considerations that Amanda and Riva and eventually Mackie are taking into account when thinking about how we're going to run our organization. I mean, that all of you are part of that in some way. I'm just like, I'm assuming that this person is specifically thinking about programming, because that is often like the hot, sexy thing on people's minds.
yeah.
Amanda, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, one, thank you, very well said. I would also say that, part of the board holding us accountable is making sure that they have a staff that is listening. So, even if we're not holding actual votes for like how we should spend our money, we're very open to feedback. We keep the channels open all the time. I mean, this series is like a great example of that.
Mm.
And, every season, like, every time we talk about a process, we're like, oh, this has changed so much. Why has it changed? It's changed because we've listened to feedback and we've made the appropriate changes based on what, the community members and the participants are telling us in terms of feedback. So I would argue, all of you already have, a say in how we spend our money. And one of the biggest ways you have a say is to just choose not to do a show, or to choose not to be a part of Afterwork Theater anymore. And not that I want you to, but like you do have power. You do have like consumer power in terms of what you can do. And I would say, and if you really, really want to get involved in the inner workings, now this is not an operational opportunity, but like talk to a board member about how you could be a member of the board. That being said, like you do approve my budget every year, but you don't necessarily like get in the weeds of like our programming and specific things, but you do have input. And, it is important for me to have a variety of opinions. So, please talk to Molly or any other board member that you know and see if maybe serving on the board would be of interest to you.
We did have the board as a future topic submission the other
Totally.
month. So stay tuned.
Great.
I think we sort of answered this before, but are financial aid recipients a hindrance to a show's budget depending on the percentage they apply for?
I think we did answer, like, no, the answer is no.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like, I just want to say that it's like, I don't want us to lose sight of like how really cool it is that we're able to do that as an organization of our size. And when I talk about size, I'm talking about our like operating budget size and like the number of people we have that we employ to do it.
Mm.
It takes work to make this happen. It's not just something we snap our fingers and we're able to make it happen. And I think that it's like I'm just always really moved when I think about it because I think I believe in mutual aid. And I think like, when I am registering for a program and I just want to acknowledge like this is like the position that I am in and I feel very lucky to be in this position, but it's like exciting to me to be like, okay, in moments where I can pay full freight for tuition to think about what doing that does for the organization. And it's like less about like what is somebody not paying full freight taking away from this and more about like what are we adding to our community by like creating a system where this is possible because it's just not possible. And it wasn't always possible. Like it just didn't always happen before. And it was important to people in this community to figure out ways to have costs not be the thing that is getting in the way of somebody participating. Yeah, I just want like I think it like the reframing of it like that can be really powerful also.
I feel very similarly about the mutual aid of it all.
Yeah, yeah.
Is the reason why a show has a set number of performances based on the show rights or the renting of the theater space? Which one is more costly?
I mean, two very different questions, but great questions. It is probably more about the theater. Theaters rent their space on a weekly basis. So we could rent for 1 week, we can rent for 2 weeks, we could rent for 3 weeks. And then we put a schedule together to do as much as possible in that time period. The number of shows, also given that we do shows in rep in order to maximize our time in the space, is based on that. I would say in terms of like impact on our budget, rights and theater are like kind of both up there. Our theaters that we use today range in price from anywhere, I would say like 5,000 to 8,000 if you also include like additional fees that we have to pay as a result of the rental, such as security, because we, frequently stay late, or additional space that we have to rent for dressing rooms. And that's a week, $5,000 to $8,000 a week. So if we're there for 3 weeks, multiply that. And the rights for a musical are in the range of like $6,000 to $7,000 to do 10
Mm.
performances at the ticket price and capacity that we have.
Expensive to put on a show.
Hey, hey.
Finances,
Yeah.
How does AWT account for a show not filling up? I'm assuming in terms of that tuition money.
We balance that out by like having a surplus from other shows.
Mm.
Or rather we budget for a surplus, rather over like outperforming our budget like in other shows. So 90% of the time we exceed our budget goals for registration, and I would say these days we're almost barely like making our income goal for ticket sales, so that the other 10% of the time when we don't hit our registration goals, we have a cushion from other shows. Also, Savannah is like a queen of saving money on production. She's really good. Like she's almost too good sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, you can spend this money. It's
right.
okay.
Take a cab. Take the cab,
Take the
Savannah.
cab, send the people in the cab, feed these people. So because, we are frugal and like we don't get complacent when we're doing well on another show, we do create that cushion for ourselves when another show like maybe doesn't meet some of those goals.
There are several other nonprofit community theaters in the city, like St. Jean's and Heights Players, that produce shows for one-off nominal membership fees. Obviously, there are a number of big things that make AWT different: larger and multiple casts, financial support, etc. But AWT's fees are significantly higher and typically come with a larger set of people per show. What about the ways that AWT operates most directly contributes to the difference in the cost to participants?
Who should take this first? You wanna go, Molly, or you want me to
Sure,
go?
sure. Yeah, but please interject as you see fit. So listen, I'm not going to pretend to like know the ins and outs and specifics of, basically any other nonprofit or community theater that exists in New York City. I do know about some key differences that I will highlight here. There are for sure community theaters that do not have staff. So they don't pay any full-time staff. We have, now I forget, who else is full-time besides you, Amanda?
Me and Meryl.
Okay, so we have 2 full-time and then 3 part-time staff members. This is actually like, I feel very proud to work with an organization where we have a community theater organization where we have people on staff in a full-time or part-time capacity, because while I think it is like amazing for there to be people who are running organizations on a volunteer basis, that is lovely. And I think it shows that they feel passion towards the work that they're doing. There are some people who aren't able to do that. It's expensive to live in the city, and it can be hard to pour that amount of your efforts into keeping a real business afloat. So it's, I think, really important to acknowledge that there is a cost to doing business when you are running a theater, which is like when we're like, yeah, it's expensive to rent a theater. It's expensive to get rights. There are costs associated with that I think people feel like really aligned with. And in my opinion, there are also costs associated with the labor of administrating our programs, of making them happen. Similarly, I know there's organizations that don't pay their creative teams. And listen, I'm not going to say anybody is getting rich being on the creative team here at AfterWork Theater. But again, I feel very proud to work for an organization that has prioritized paying our creative teams as much as we can, and has also like increased that stipend or that amount of money over the years. Again, like when we, hit it big, like it would be great to see more strides in that area, and I would love to see that, but I think we do a lot for where we are right now. So those 2 things I actually like, that's some money. And that's again, nobody is rich. And honestly, even if they were, I'd be like, don't you think Amanda deserves to like make a living in New York City? Like, sorry. I feel very proud about the amount of money that we're paying anybody that we have to pay. And that is just different. Like if you're an organization that doesn't have to, if you're thinking about paying somebody like on staff, sorry, now Amanda, this is going to get weird, but like you're not just talking about your salary, there's taxes that you have to pay. There's just like all sorts of different things that it's not just the salary, there's more that goes into it. Where my HR peeps out, like we all know about this. And that's what this is. So I think that just does, you are right, fundamentally change our economic structure, and thus just means that that money has to come from somewhere. We are, Amanda is working really hard with new board member Aya, who has like a really kick-ass fundraising background to see to like increase our contributed income goals, which I think is just going to contribute to us being a healthier financially organization over time. But I don't, honestly, I don't ever see, unless like something amazing happened where like suddenly like everything is endowed for the rest of time. I don't see our tuition model going away in that way.
Mhm.
This is like the way that it works. So yeah, Amanda, I think you have some additional.
Yeah, well, one, I mean, all of that was well said. Regarding the volunteers, so yeah, I mean, I know a few community theater organizations who they have a board and they're all volunteer board members and they do all of the operations of
Mhm.
the show. What I think it's also important to keep in mind is like they're there to put on a show. And at Afterwork Theater, like I often say this, like the show is actually secondary. Like there's
Mhm.
our ultimate goal is not putting on shows. It's building community, it's putting more empathy out into the world, it's, helping people enrich their own lives and their own, confidence and, have them build their own community, even if it's that they come to us, they become a part of our community, and then they create their own community on the side. Like all of that is wonderful to us. And that is what our paid staff is really, focused on in terms of the end goal. Like, yes, we have people that we pay in order to, produce these programs, but like ultimately, like they know that that mission is like the thing to keep in mind. And it means we have to pay our creative team members and hire people who also know that, who are here to be community leaders and to be welcoming of everybody, who can do our shows and to help like also do, bring that enrichment into people's
Mhm.
lives. In terms of like paying staff versus volunteer, like that's just like a huge difference of like why we pay people to do this instead of having people volunteer to put on shows. Other community theaters, like I mean, I love that we've been around for at this point like 12 years, but like some of these community theaters have been around for like
Yeah.
decades longer than us and have a very long history of, and multi-generational support. Like in terms of tradition, look, I don't know the ins and outs of other theater companies' budgeting, but I do know, generally speaking, at community theaters, money gets rewarded. If
Mhm.
you bring money in, you get things in return. Like you get to do the
Mhm.
show that you want to do. You get to direct the show you want to do. You get to be the star in the show you want to do because you've donated a lot of money. And
Mhm.
that is absolutely not something we are interested in doing. In fact, we want to do the absolute opposite. And that's just a difference in values, and it's just a difference in, in terms of what our goals are. And that's, that's what you're paying for. You're paying, to be a part of this community. And I, the last thing I want to say is like when I think of who our, comps are, like who our comparables are, it isn't other community theaters because I don't think of us as a community theater. I think of other like after work activities,
Mhm.
like joining a softball league. Like I used to be a part of a softball league. I think I had to pay like $200 for the season. We played like 8 games, like a championship, whatever. We had to buy our own uniforms, buy our own cleats, bring our own bats and balls to the game.
Mhm.
There's the organization that the league, organization brought in the umpires,
Mhm.
like they brought in the staff to help facilitate the games, but otherwise, and I'm like, oh, that's exactly what we do,
Right.
except it's theater, it's not softball. And like in terms of cost, it's like kind of the same in terms of what you're getting. Like I
Mhm.
would pay $200 for 8 games, but like, we're paying the amount we pay for like much more time together than that. So I think that maybe it was
Yeah.
my thoughts on.
And there is also like a strategy involved, I think, in creating an environment where like once you're in, you're in. and that you're not
Mm.
like made to feel less than if you're in the
Yeah.
ensemble versus a big part. And like I am in right now a rehearsal process for like a dance show, not outside of AfterWork Theater, that is very like meritocracy based, which like by the way, I knew going into it, but it is very much like the really good people are doing really good stuff. And like if you are less adept, like you're just doing something that like might feel like lesser, which like not to knock that experience, I'm getting a lot out of that experience, but it has really been like for me, I'm like, oh, yeah. Because it's like I'm spending a lot of time as I am prepping for dance out, you know, thinking about like all the different kinds of tracks, and Anya is too, and Regina, different kinds of tracks for different people so that like all abilities and levels feel similarly lifted up. And so like I'm just saying that because it's like there's like additional things that go into that, and we have to, you know, we want to pay people for their time, you know. So,
You made me think of one other thing, which is
yeah.
I think, but I could be wrong. Like we incorporate a lot more dancing into our shows than maybe some other community theaters who don't have the resources to like hire a choreographer. So because we do that, like that's an extra person we have to hire, and that's more space that we have to rent.
Yeah.
So that's just another additional cost. Like I mean, please correct me, but I just feel like when I see other community theater groups do musicals, it's more like it's not as dance intensive as what we do. So, which is just a difference. It's not good or bad. It's just a difference, and it hopefully helps answer the question.
Is there a set budget for every type of production, i.e., one price for plays and one for musicals, or does it all depend on how much it costs getting the rights?
I mean, yeah, yes and yes. I have a set budget for every program type. So that would be a musical, it would be a boot camp, a sing out, a dance out, a play, every kind of class. And yet, like, yes, the amount of how much the rights costs does factor in addition to a lot of other things, like how many staff
Mhm.
members do we have to hire, how much space do we need, et cetera, how much the theater would cost for this kind of program.
Could we ever budget to be able to buy costumes for everyone rather than having to purchase them ourselves?
In one answer is if we did, tuition would go up. Another answer is we don't want people to buy. Like we don't want people to spend a lot of money on costumes. People do anyway. Like
Mhm.
we try to encourage our directors to give a costume, like whatever the word is, directive that is things that can come from your closet. And this has been a topic of conversation in our staff meetings a lot. It's like costumes are a thing that really show an economic divide
Yes.
in our within our
Yes.
community, and I hate it. Like
Yes.
I know that there are people who can spend hundreds of dollars on their costumes, and what that does is makes other people feel like they also have to do that.
Mm.
Yes.
And I kind of don't know what to do about it. Like I'm at a little bit of a loss, short
Well,
of just making an appeal to be like,
yeah,
please don't do this. Like, please.
yeah. I
Um,
do think the appeal is part of it. But also, can I lift up something we talked about in our board retreat?
yeah.
So like we were one thing that Tori and Savannah and I were talking about was just like the design of shows generally speaking. And I think Tori came up with this verbiage that basically like we're realizing design patterns of shows, that there's like peasant shows where like you're dressed like a peasant. So that would be like Something Rotten, Young Frankenstein, elements of Cinderella. Then there's like contemporary teenage shows, which would be like The Prom or High School Musical or 13 or things like that. And like we were like, there's probably like a couple other categories. And so also then like thinking in the future about like categorizing shows that way, to be like, look to the people who were in the last peasant show and like find
Yeah,
someone similarly shaped as you, and maybe they have something to borrow, which I just thought was like a really cute idea also. I'm
yeah.
just like obsessed with peasant show now.
There were so many Cinderella and something rotten costumes
Yeah,
on that Young Frankenstein stage.
Yeah,
so great.
which is
And so I
great.
feel like that's
Yeah.
where also I think I don't remember. I definitely was asked once, I think like by Evan, like if like back in the day, like if we were going to, if like we had more money in the budget for something, like, would you want it to be for costumes? And I kind of was like, no, because costumes actually are really expensive. And I think like unless we wanted to add like $10,000 to make costumes happen, I'd rather just lean into the scrappy thing and like put that money elsewhere. Like I'd rather have more people be able to do the show because they, we can offer more financial aid than that. And I think that's how we kind of feel, generally speaking, as an organization also, that like that's the focus is allowing the people to do the shows as opposed to making them look like how you think they should look in your head.
Yeah. Also, like you can get very creative on a budget.
Yeah.
It's so easy. Like if you have the money, it's very easy to buy something and look great. But like it's if you're crafty and creative, like you can do something you're really, really proud of. There was one year we did get a grant that I used to
Yes.
subsidize people going to thrift stores. So if people went to a thrift store or anywhere else where they were like buying something, being repurposed, like whether it's Facebook Marketplace or whatever, we would subsidize it. And I think exactly 3 people opted into it. And it was pretty disappointing. Like it
Yeah.
really deflated me to like have this opportunity to actually subsidize but by thrifting. And it wasn't,
Yeah.
taken advantage of.
Yeah. I mean, and some of that is like, unfortunately, like the woes of capitalism that like it is just so easy to buy things on Amazon and they're not that expensive. And also like for certain body shapes and sizes, it's much harder to thrift things. So there's like just acknowledging there's like
Yeah,
a lot of things at play
of
here. It's
course.
like never
Yeah.
just one thing, but yeah, we want to, we want to encourage that.
Yeah, totally. And I think our costumes always look great, personally. I always
Yeah.
think we look really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Get
love seeing
creative.
a recycled costume.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. I really do. I get a kick
yeah.
out of it. And I'm like, what history that skirt has seen,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it too. Get creative. Pin rats to your costume.
Pin rats to your costume.
Yes. Where does all of AWT's money come from? What percentage is from tuition, grants, donors, etc.?
Great. So for our FY25 budget, which is the fiscal year we are currently in and is through June 30th, we are budgeted to have 54% come from tuition, 29% come from ticket sales, and 16% come from philanthropy. So donations, grants, company matches, board give gets. We typically exceed our goals on registry on tuition, and we don't quite hit our goals on philanthropy. We are because Aya has just joined the board. She has given me a directive to increase the percentage that comes from philanthropy, and the goal is going to be 25%, which is a
Oh,
huge, huge,
nice.
huge jump. Uh,
Yes. But we
so
believe you and us, all of us together.
yeah. So hopefully that answers the question.
All right, last question. How resilient are AWT's finances to crisis? What impact does a season with low participation or low ticket sales have on the future of the organization? Would AWT be able to survive another lockdown?
I mean, heavy question, heavy question.
Yeah. Sorry, maybe
Like
that was a bad closer.
yeah,
Sorry.
we're gonna close with a myth buster.
My bad.
Yeah, no, 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 you're doing great. We can edit this and flip the order
Move
around.
it.
How resilient are we? I mean, we have an okay cushion. I would say it's okay. I wouldn't say it's great. Referencing the lockdown, when we went into the lockdown, we had a huge cushion. I really want to give, our previous administration a lot of credit. We had so much money in the bank that we were able to keep, we only had 3 team members at the time, but we were able to keep all 3 employed, shifted our focus. We applied and received federal aid that was, I forget what the word is, but we didn't have to pay it back. So that was very, very good. So because we had like what I would call a very, very good cushion at the time, we were able to survive that lockdown. Our cushion today is okay. I have been not focusing so much on rebuilding it as much as I have been on just like trying to grow this organization and focusing on, some of our mission driven things while we slowly grow our surplus, which is what exactly has been happening. Because, as I answered in a previous question, we do outperform like most shows. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure this question has to do with some recent seasons where we've seen things not filling up and ticket sales not being as great as we want it to be. Actually, ticket sales have been improving season over season. So I've been pretty pleased with that progress.
Nice.
But because we, have been able to build up more of a surplus with earlier shows where we outperformed, like it would be great if we didn't have a show that underperformed, but like we're in an okay place. Could we survive another lockdown? I don't know. We have 5 employees now. I mean, the answer is hopefully yes, but it might maybe not with as little impact as we had the first time. Like maybe we'd have to let some people go. Maybe we'd have to scale back on some salaries. So like I hope the answer is yes, but not with as much certainty as the previous situation we were in.
Well,
Yeah.
on that note,
Way to end on that note.
sorry guys. Did not think about the story arc of my
Oh, it's
questions
okay.
as well as I could have.
All been there.
To bring us back above water, AWT Mythbusters. This is the segment that we like to close out with, where Amanda or Molly, if she wants to, busts a myth about AWT that they have heard circulating.
Molly has one.
Yeah. My myth that I have heard before is that the board gets paid. Now, I do want to acknowledge that there's like, if you're familiar with like a corporate board structure, that is how that works, or it can be how that works. But for nonprofit boards, and I would say this is, I mean, sure there's some exceptions, but across the board, no pun intended, it's volunteer service. And in fact, there often is a like a fundraising goal that you have to achieve in order to maintain your membership on a board. For us, it's commonly referred to as a give get, meaning either you're giving that money or you're getting that money from your friends and then giving it to the organization. For us at AWT, it is something you can opt into year over year, kind of depending on your financial situation. And the reason we did that was to allow the board to be more, or board membership to be accessible to more folks, because even though our give get optional is on the lower end, generally speaking, like on some of these boards, like if you're on the board of like Lincoln Center, I think it's like $40,000 like annually that you're on the hook for. It might be more than that. Ours is much lower than that, but still, it's, it is something. So we like to allow people to opt in and out of it every year. So yes, but I do not get paid to be on the board. We all volunteer our time, and some of us give money. All of us give our talent. And yeah. Was there another thing about the board that I was going to say? I forget now, but I think that's it.
It's
Yeah.
plenty.
Yeah. So that's board service. Yeah. If you have friends who work at nonprofits, they'll know about that too. So you can talk to them also.
Well, that's all I have for us. Thank you again for joining us, Molly. And as always, thank you, Amanda, for being so open and honest. And thank you, everyone, for all of your questions. You're all the best. And I love your questions. They're always very good.
Yeah, they're great. Thank you. Yeah, again, thank you so much for all of your open and honest questions. I'm so baffled that like this topic could never win a poll.
I
But
know.
yeah, there were so many great and wonderful questions that, I really enjoyed answering. Yes, Molly?
Maybe this would have benefited from ranked choice voting. And
Oh.
also, wait, just to tie to something else we talked about, an example of if we were just going off of majority, this wouldn't have happened. But by taking other factors into account, we decided that this was like a good subject. So just like real life example of how voting,
Yeah.
Also, we have a mayoral election coming up. So think about that, everybody.
You can go to Molly's personal Instagram.
That's my personal
to
Instagram.
learn more about that.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
thank you, Ellen. As always,
Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful for the time and effort you put into this, and being such a wonderful liaison to our community.
You. All right. Bye.